I'd like to talk first about why systemic change is important. Systemic change is important because the needs for education have changed so dramatically that our current educational system has become obsolete, just like the one-room schoolhouse became obsolete when our society changed from the agrarian age to the industrial age. Now that we're evolving into the information age, we find that knowledge work is replacing manual labor as the predominant form of work. And this requires a very different kind of education for people. It requires much more attention to students becoming self-directed lifelong learners. It requires much more attention to learners developing problem-solving skills, collaborative skills, initiative, many kinds of character traits that are much more important now that were much less important during the industrial age. So as a result, patching up or fixing our current paradigm of education is not going to provide us with the kinds of improvements that we need to meet students' educational needs today. So what we need to do is to turn to a paradigm that is much more customized, a paradigm that relies much more on student self-direction, a very different paradigm from what we have today. Let me give an example of why we need paradigm change. One of the things that we pretty much all agree on is that students learn at different rates. And yet, in our current educational system, we try to teach a fixed amount of content in a fixed amount of time. So, as a result, some students are not going to master the material before they are required to move on. Now, that met the needs during the industrial age because we couldn't afford to educate everybody to high levels. And even if we could, who would work on assembly lines? So we needed a system that would sort the laborers from the managers. But today, it's a very different story. With knowledge work as the predominant form of work, we need to educate far more people to far higher levels of education. And because of that, we need a system that is no longer focused on sorting students, but is focused on maximizing learning. Well, how do we do that? Rather than holding time constant, which forces achievement to vary, we need to hold achievement constant at a mastery level and allow students as much time as they need to reach those attainments. So we need a system in which student progress is based on learning rather than on time. Now, that requires a complete change in our educational system. It requires doing away with grade levels. It requires doing away with courses as we know them, doing away with grades. What we need to know about students is not how they compare to other students, but what do they know? What have they learned? So that we can decide whether they're ready to move on. So this requires complete changes throughout all aspects of the system. It requires changes in the role of the teacher, change in the role of the students, change in the role of technology, complete changes throughout the educational system. The instructional systems have to change, the assessment systems have to change, the record-keeping systems have to change, and even the administrative systems need to change. So those are some of the major reasons why systemic change or paradigm change is so important today as we evolve deeper and deeper into the information age. If we do not make paradigm change, we're going to find that educational system increasingly unable to meet the needs of our students, and our society is going to suffer greatly.